What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Somewhat Sports Podcast. My name is Chris, and I'm joined by two of the greats in this industry, Jurg and Dame. Fellas, how are we this week?
It is I can't say beautiful Thursday because,
Yeah.
dear Lord, it's raining. And it's like going in between light drizzle and torrential downpour every like half hour, it feels like. So I apologize on the front end if at any point while I'm speaking you hear it sounds like a monsoon is happening outside. But we can't control the weather, but we can control the quality of this podcast, which is, as per usual on a weekly basis, is absolutely S tier. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us again. We love podcasting. We love podcasting to all of you.
I'm doing good. Nothing much on my end. Still waiting on Aaron Judge to hit 2 more home runs. That chase is probably going to be over by this weekend, I think. They have 4 game series against the Red Sox, so I'm really excited for that. Other than that, nothing much.
Yeah, pretty regular on our end. Uneventful, but we keep moving. We're at the end of the dark days. Fall just I think today the first day of fall?
I think so.
So there you go. So
Might be.
news is bound to pick up. There's already news in the NBA, right? And training camp has training camp started? I'm sorry for the 20 questions.
I don't think so.
No.
No, I don't think it has.
Okay. All right. Well, training camp is about to start for the NBA. We're in week 3 of football already, guys. I can't believe how fast this shit is moving. I need time to slow down a bit because once NFL finishes, I'm going to be very depressed. But yeah, NHL is also around the corner, so our Ice Prince Jurg is on top of that. News everywhere. News everywhere. So the rundown this week, Jurg continues the NHL Division Series where he previews each division in the NHL. He will cover each team in the division, give his thoughts on the teams that he's bullish on, the teams that he's bearish on, the dark horses, all that good stuff. And then we're going to be talking about a trade that occurred in the NBA. A player that was expected to be traded, but not to a team that we expected at all, actually.
Nor the package.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. A unique and questionable trade in the NBA is what we'll be covering. And then of course we're gonna end with our coverage / thoughts on week 2 of the NFL. We're gonna recap it. We're gonna just talk about the eventful results. Yeah, we're not gonna go over every game, but we're gonna go over the games that we think are worth covering, and then we're gonna give our Crowns and Clowns of the Week. That's right, the new segment that we introduced last week where we, give our best player of the week, and then we also give our clown award to who we think was the opposite of the best player of the week. And it could also be a coach. That's the beauty of it. Could be anyone that we think is the clown of the week. How would we describe the clown of the week in this? Because it's not like necessarily the worst player, right?
For me, what the idea is it doesn't necessarily need to just do with performance. It can
Yeah.
just be utter sheer stupidity, uh, lack of common sense, things like that. Like, for example, and this could be for a future episode, like because it'll probably happen at least once a season. If a defensive player gets an interception or fumble and runs it to the end zone, and they flick the ball before they cross the end zone, that's a clown of the week. Because like, how many times does it have to happen for these players to just stop from doing that? Like, it almost happened actually in a game we're going to talk about here later on in the show. Like, it actually almost happened in one of the more entertaining games from this week. So that's something not a lot of people realize. So yeah, like that's my personal thing. And just like overall, like just complete buffoon stooge is another like good bar to set for it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we could just kind of give this award to Kirk Cousins every week, but I guess to be fun and entertaining, we'll switch it up. But anyway, yeah. Again, NHL, NBA trade, NFL Week 2 recap, clowns and crowns of the week. All right, as we always do, we start off with the best Jurg NHL divisions preview continues this week. What do you got for us?
Well, actually, yes, the division preview does continue this week. Actually, I also have a little bit of a news dump because randomly, just like the NBA, the NHL also had a little bit of news happen within this week. I will just say on the front end that today I am excited to say that we are going to be going over the Atlantic Division in this episode. And just like I did with last week's episode with the Metropolitan Division, I'm going to go in the order based off of last year's standings, how it finished from last to first. So I'm going to talk about the team that finished the worst in the Atlantic Division before going to, and obviously making a ascending order all the way to the top of it with the team that won it. But just a quick news dump of notable things. This is for the 2 hockey fans that listen to this podcast. They'll actually care what I'm talking about real quick. 3 notable defensemen in the NHL actually all retired within like a span of 12 to 15 hours, which is pretty insane for news wise. Keith Yandel, Zdeno Chara, and PK Subban have all retired. Those were, like I said, 3 very notable defensemen, 2 of them playing well over 1,000 games in their career, in Yandel and Chara. Subban falls below that, but at his peak, one of the most well-known and better defensemen in the NHL, a Norris Trophy winner, which in layman's terms, that is the award given to the best defenseman for a season. He won that when he was, I think it was his age 23 season in the NHL when he won it. So it was a very great year for him that year. Keith Yandel, a former 5th-round pick, ended up playing over 1,000 games in his career. A 5th-round pick plays over 1,000 games for you. That's pretty special. That's the equivalent in the NBA. I mean, because those are 2 sports that are very closely related because of 82-game seasons. Imagine, boys, a 2nd-round pick playing at least well over a decade in their career and getting close to 1,000 games like that. It's a pretty easy comparison. Keith Yandel, great career. And then Zdeno Chara, future Hall of Famer, Norris Trophy winner, captain of the Boston Bruins when they won their most recent Stanley Cup back in 2011. I think just the 4th, it wasn't the 4th at a time he's been joined recently, but the 4th European born and trained player to captain a NHL team to a Stanley Cup. So a lot of history there. One of the just well-known guys in the league because he's also the tallest player ever at 6'9". Beast of a defenseman in his peak years, absolute monster. And there was a reason why when he ended up joining the Boston Bruins, they became a lot better. They became a force to be reckoned with, and they ultimately did end up winning the Stanley Cup. And they made the Cup final actually 3 times overall in his tenure there. So I just want to say hats off to those 3 gentlemen on Hall of Fame, on their careers, and hats off to Zdeno Chara, Big Z in particular. That's a future Hall of Famer right there when the time comes. So with that quick news dump said, Atlantic Division, let's go, boys. Starting from the bottom, going all the way up, let's start with the Montreal Canadiens. Montreal were bad last season. I'll just keep it straightforward. They were absolutely terrible last season. They were right there with the Blackhawks and the Coyotes for the sheer bottom of the league in terms of performance. They ended up firing their now former head coach, of course, Dominique Ducharme, last season. And what a decision it was, boys, because everything became better for this team once his ass was out of there. And Martin St. Louis, yes, that very same Martin St. Louis who won an MVP award in the NHL, he also ended up joining the ranks, became a head coach, and actually not bad, honestly, for his first ever head coaching tenure, to be honest. My thing for the Montreal Canadiens is just like, we know this is going to be a bad year for them. Let's just keep it straightforward there. But the key is they need to identify their core and they need to identify their support. This team recently named their new team captain, Nick Suzuki. It's a big deal to be named team captain for the Montreal Canadiens, one of the original 6 franchises in the NHL. So that's going to be a lot of pressure on his shoulders, but I think he'll do good there. Other key pieces for them includes a former first-round pick in Cole Caulfield, who had 40-plus points last season after a slow start, again, due to Ducharme not knowing at all what the hell to do with him. And then finally, their first overall pick from this past draft, Juraj Slafkovsky. It looks like he's probably going to end up making the opening roster. He's not, because of his situation, like, they signed him. I don't think he can go overseas. I think maybe it wouldn't surprise me if he starts in the minors a little bit, because I think he does need to get used to the North American ice and the North American style of play and all things considered, but it's not going to surprise me. He's going to play a good chunk of the season, most likely, with the Montreal Canadiens. And then from there, if you have those core pieces, identify the support pieces that could be into the future. Guys like a Brendan Gallagher, who's a good veteran, and Joel Armia, Kirby Dach, who they traded for from my Blackhawks. I've been saying my team a lot these last couple of weeks because we just decided to trade heaven and earth this offseason, and we got held back for it. But Kirby Dach added to that Montreal Canadiens core, a very underrated center. I think he's going to do great. I think him as the second line center is going to be great in Montreal in the future. And then whatever veterans you still have there, trade them. It's simple. Build up draft capital, get as many picks as you can, and then move those picks when the time comes. Like this is where you need to, look at the NBA, look at what Danny Ainge is doing with the Jazz, look at what Presti's done with the Thunder, and just try to do that in NHL terms here. And they have the GM to do it. I think Ken Hughes has been off to a pretty good start so far in his tenure. I think this could continue it depending on what they do. Next team here is actually a team I could slightly spend a little bit more giving hope for, I could say, with the Ottawa Senators. This team is way more far along in their rebuild than some of the other teams that I'm going to get to here. They have a core of guys there that have all performed relatively well. You have Brady Tkachuk, who is 67 points last season. Josh Norris, who you just extended this past summer, 35 goals, well within a career high. Drake Batherson, 44 points. Tim Stützle, 58 points, also got a contract extension. The young core of this team, this is very rare actually for NHL teams to do, is locked in long term. which is absolutely massive for this team. They added in the offseason by getting veteran and hometown boy Claude Giroux, the former Flyers captain and guy who played a big role for the Panthers in their playoff push. Panthers I'll get to later. They also traded for Cam Talbot, and they took Alex DeBrincat from, you guessed it, my Chicago Blackhawks, a guy with 240-goal seasons in his career. Add some great offense into that top six, could be a great line mate with either Kachuk or Stutzel, however they want to build it there. There's a lot of flexibility, I think, in Ottawa. Only thing I'm not too sold on is the goaltending situation. I think Cam Talbot was a good add to be the new starter, but I'm not really sold on Anton Forsberg. Nothing against him. He played great last season, and I give him all the respect. He got paid, and I'm all for players getting paid. But my thing is, like, I don't like it when backup goalies are now given the role to be full-time starter. It doesn't really work out that often. It just doesn't. We love the fantasy story. We love the Cinderella run. And then it quickly, the clock will strike midnight and it's not going to end well. I hope, obviously, if that could not be the case, that would be awesome. But being a little bit realistic, I think there's a lot more work to do in Ottawa aside from that. The defensive core could also use quite a bit more work, and I just think the top of this division is still too strong. And the other division I covered last week, the Metro, is going to play a big role in taking up wildcard spots. Because remember, in the NHL, guys, the top 3 teams in the division make the playoffs, and then the other 2 spots for the 8 teams in each conference is decided by wildcard, and both wildcard spots could go to another division. I don't think this is the year for the Senators yet, but the building blocks are there for them in the long term, so good for you, Ottawa. Speaking of a team that's trying to build for the long term, still the Detroit Red Wings and the Buffalo Sabres. I can kind of lump them together. Very kind of similar to Montreal, but again, both teams are a little bit farther along than Montreal, especially the Detroit Red Wings. Even though Buffalo finished above them last season, it wouldn't surprise me if Detroit does better. They traded for Ville Husso this past offseason. I think he's obviously going to be a new starter there, and him and Alex Nedeljkovic as the tandem, I think will work a lot better. I think Nedeljkovic being the backup now, as opposed to being the starter with the expectation, I think will be a lot better for him in terms of performance. Again, good young pieces on this team. They added some solid veterans like Andrew Kopp and Ben Sherratt and Oli Mata to help out the defense. Dominic Kubalik, again, from my Blackhawks. I feel like I'm going to be saying that a lot over the next couple of weeks, and it's hurting me every single time. But the Detroit Red Wings have a little bit of a core there. They have some offense there. You still need to see some pieces step up. Some of the youth on this team. Lucas Raymond was great last season. Can he take a next step? Michael Rasmussen, can he take a next step? Moritz Seider, I don't need to ask if he could take a next step. That's going to be one of the top 10 defensemen in the NHL for years to come very soon. He was last year's Rookie of the Year winner. I'm very high on his ceiling. I think he would be great. But it's the rest of this team. They're closer to having a identifiable core. Now they need to continue to build on that. Somewhat similar with the Buffalo Sabres. Except my thing with the Sabres, I can't identify a for sure core. I just think they have a lot of youth. I think there are guys that can be core pieces on this team for sure. I'd like to think Casey Middlestad will be able to step up for this team this next season, but he needs to do a lot better than just 19 points in 40 games. Peyton Krebs played well after he was traded from Vegas to Buffalo, so I think this year will be a big year for him. And Jack Quinn as well. Hopefully he's able to play. Was an absolute beast in the AHL last season. Now is the time for him to play in the NHL and step up. Tage Thompson is an interesting one. He got a 7-year, $50 million contract extension from the Buffalo Sabres a couple weeks back, boys. And the thing is that he had a career year. He had 38 goals this past season, almost 70 points overall. And the thing with Tage Thompson is that he got paid after 1 year because the Sabres were scared to potentially lose him next offseason. I think this is, I don't want to call it an overpay. I think this is a overvalue and an overestimation based on what his market could have been off of just right now 1 year of production. But I think there was pressure internally in the organization to keep him because he is the biggest trade chip that they got from a trade a couple years back for Ryan O'Reilly, who they sent to the St. Louis Blues, who would end up winning the Stanley Cup with the Blues. So it doesn't surprise me if there was pressure within the organization, especially Kevin Adams, it's up and down with him as GM. He's certainly better than a lot of his predecessors. I'll give the Sabres credit there, but still a lot of work to do in Buffalo. I think the biggest thing will be the future in net. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen has been a guy that NHL fans have known for the last couple of years. This needs to be a time where he gets a good chunk of playing time in the NHL. I know he'll start in the AHL, but he needs to be called up at some point because we need to see how he can handle closer to a not full season grind because goalies don't play 82 plus games. They tend to try to do 55 to 60. He's not going to get that this season. If he could get well in the double digits, if he could get 20 games played in the NHL this season, that'd be big for the Sabres and their future going forward. Speaking of the future, I just talked about a lot of teams who the short term is bleak, but the long term could be prosperous. I got to reverse that here. It's a reversal of fortune because it's the Boston Bruins this time. the short term is supposed to be bright, but the long term could be bleak with this team. The Boston Bruins are going to start off next season in the hospital, essentially. A lot of the key pieces on this team, who has been a consistent force in the Eastern Conference for the last decade plus, is going to start the season hurt. Brad Marchand, who had surgery on both his hips this offseason, is projected to miss the first couple months of the season. Charlie McAvoy and Matt Grizzly, both defensemen who got shoulder surgeries this offseason. I think one of them got it on the left, the other one got it on the right, ironically enough. They're both going to miss at least, from when they had their surgeries, 5 months. The earliest they're expected to be back is December. Same with Marchand. And then Mike Riley, who also had a surgery on a tendon, right ankle tendon repair, 3 months from when his surgery happened. I think he's still going to miss at least the first month of the season. It wouldn't surprise me. The question with this team is, do they somehow have one more run in them? They fired head coach Bruce Cassidy for Jim Montgomery. Kind of a questionable move there to me. There's still some talent on this team, but I think this is a big make or break year. You have a lot of key pieces on this team that only have 1 year left, like a David Pastrnak, who's probably going to test unrestricted free agency next year. Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci, who everyone is expecting this to be their final year in Boston. Krejci actually went away for a season, then came back. This is likely his swan song, as well as Bergeron. There's decent depth around those guys, but those guys, like those depth pieces, need to take it to that next level. The Bruins have been a team for so long that we know is consistent. Would it surprise me if they make the playoffs this year? No, because they did last year. But I don't have that high of expectations for them going into the season. And this season could potentially be the beginning of the end of a era in Boston that saw so much success. As I mentioned earlier, it was a Daniel Chara, really a decade plus run here for the Boston Bruins. And it could end after this season, because the future, like I said, is bleak. And it's not looking pretty in Boston, which, I mean, do I have sympathy for? No, because it's Boston. But overall, like in the NHL, teams, like, there's highs and lows. It's not too common. It's kind of hard because some teams have had a sustained amount of success within the last, since the turn of the century. I think of the Penguins and the Blackhawks and the Capitals are like the three chief teams who all had decade plus runs where they were consistent. The Bruins, of course, are in that convo, and now it just looks like it's their time to finally take a step back after the season potentially. I mean, will it come true? We'll see, but that's my thing for the Boston Bruins. A team whose fortunes are not going to turn any soon. The back-to-back Eastern Conference champions. They've three-peated the East. They're going to go for a four-peat in the East and 3 cups in 4 years this year. The Tampa Bay Lightning. Some tough losses in the offseason with the losses of guys like Andre Palat and Ryan McDonough, but they still have like a core. It doesn't even begin to describe just how God mode this team can be when they're at their best, when they are absolutely the peak of their powers. Their core: Nikita Kucherov, former MVP; Steven Stamkos, first ever 100-point season in his career this past year; Braden Point, pure playoff performer. They made it to the Stanley Cup final with him essentially missing their entire playoff run last year. Oh dear God, if he's back and healthy, it's not going to be good. Anthony Cirelli, one of the best two-way defensemen in the game to me, and two-way forward in the game. Early candidate, I think, low-key underrated for Selke this year, because I think Anthony Cirelli could really take a step forward this year, as if he hasn't already. The defense: Victor Hedman, one of the top 5 defensemen in the game; Mikhail Sergachev, a guy who's going to take that next step this year. I think a lot of people, I mentioned the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they extended some guys to 8-year deals. Sergachev, Chernak, and Cirelli were those 3 guys. A lot of people question the Sergachev deal. I don't think people understand the fact that he has played a lesser role on this team for the last 3 years than his talent merits. I think Mikhail Sergachev is going to prove a lot of people wrong this season with more playing time he's going to get now that McDonough is gone. And like I mentioned, Chernak, brute, absolute physical defenseman. He's going to throw the body. They added some nice depth: Ian Cole, Vladislav Nemesnikov, actually returning to Tampa Bay, funny enough. He started his career there. And Philippe Myers, who they got in the McDonough deal. What more can I say? This team is a Stanley Cup contender once again. Look, some people might doubt it. I'm saying this right now. To me, again, they're my favorite in the East right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up four-peating the Eastern Conference. It just wouldn't surprise me. This team is absolute beast, because at the end of the day, they have still the best goalie in the world, Andrei Vasilevsky. This team has proven they can win and make it to the playoffs as injured. They can win in the playoffs when injured. If this team can somehow stay fully healthy throughout an entire regular season and playoffs, they're winning the cup. It's not even a question. And it's absolutely insane just how talented they are. Speaking of teams that are talented, but this one, you could say, I said at one point that the Tampa Bay Lightning look at this team and they saw an old version of themselves. And this team looks at the Tampa Bay Lightning and they see a version of themselves that have actually won. And that's the Toronto Maple Leafs. Austin Matthews, 60-goal scorer, last year's regular season MVP. Mitch Marner, 97 points last year. Nylander, 80 points. John Tavares, former Islander, fun fact, for those that are uninitiated to it, 76 points. the core four of that team, plus a very solid depth core of guys like Pierre Engvall, David Kamp, former Blackhawk, yes, I know, and Kel Yorncrook, absolutely fantastic there. A lot of turnover on this team, though, especially in the goalie front. Jack Campbell and Peter Mrazek both gone. Campbell in free agency, Mrazek in a trade. Funny enough, too, the Blackhawks. Weirdly enough, we get a player back that I just didn't want. Then again, we're rebuilding, as I'll go over in a future episode. Matt Murray, though, was gotten in a trade from the Ottawa Senators, actually, and Ilya Samsonov was signed to a 1-year deal. What a very interesting what could happen there in Toronto. I think both guys have the potential to play well, especially I think Matt Murray. The Senators' poor play last season was a big deterrent as to why his stats were so bad, but I think Matt Murray himself can actually play better if the defense in front of him plays better. Not saying Toronto is a fantastic defensive team, but they're better than what Ottawa was last season, to say the very least. And then finally, I will say, Maple Leafs, expectations for them, just get past the first round, boys. Just get the Toronto Maple Leafs first round memes have been going on longer than I've been an NHL fan. And it's been amplified the last couple of years because they just keep losing in Game 7. It's like, to me, it's funny, but at some point, it's like, really, can we just get past this? They got unlucky because they faced Tampa in round 1. I said it last year. I'll say it again. If they had faced any of the other first round teams in round 1, I think they would have won it in the first round. So if they just don't get unlucky again, if they can face a team not called the Tampa Bay Lightning in round 1 this year, I think they'll finally win a first round series again. And finally, a team who a lot of people are predicting to take a step back, and it doesn't surprise me, that the Florida Panthers, last year's President Trophy winners, had a very interesting offseason, to say the least. Not all started, but the biggest move from this offseason that everyone will remember this for is them trading Jonathan Huberdeau, last season's second leading point scorer in the NHL, 115 points, to the Calgary Flames for Matthew Tkachuk, who had 104 points. So the way you replace a player who got 115 points, get a guy back who can score 104. But in that trade, they also traded one of their key defensemen in Mackenzie Weegar. So their defensive core got a little bit weaker. The also big loss, I think, they lost guys that they picked up at the deadline in Claude Giroux and Ben Sherratt for nothing. They lost Mason Marchman, who put up 47 points last year. But to me, the biggest thing was that the fact that they let a guy who's a Jack Adams finalist, that's the Coach of the Year award in the NHL, Jack Adams finalist Andrew Burnett, they did not retain him. Remember, he took over the job within the first month and a half of the season, was the interim coach the whole time, led this team to the best record in hockey, lost in the second round, albeit in a very embarrassing fashion in a sweep to the Lightning, and they don't retain him, and they replace him with Paul Maurice? No, I'm sorry. There's a reason. I don't think Florida's going to miss the playoffs, like some people are actually stepping out on a limb here, but I just don't like the fact that they let Brunette go and they replace him with Paul Maurice. To me, the only thing I could see is the fact that maybe in net, like this is arguably the best tandem in net that he's had in a while in his coaching career. This is a guy who's coached for 24 seasons, but has only made the playoff 9 times, so less than a 50% clip. That's not great. I think that in Florida, things are going to be different. They need to figure out a new way with the offense. The defense needs to take a massive step up because they lost a key piece in Weegar. Aaron Ekblad, like he's already their number one defenseman, but the core around him needs to step up. I think there's a reason why people are expecting the Florida Panthers to take a step back, and I think that is apropos, and I think that is right. I don't think they'll be leading this division. If I had to, I kind of gave it last week. If I had to make my early bets on the division winner, I think either the Maple Leafs or the Lightning are going to be the first seed in the division this year. And the other one will likely be number 2. I think they're going to be the 1 and 2. And if I had to guess, I think the Panthers can still be the 3rd seed. From there, it kind of depends how far do the Boston Bruins fall. Can someone in the bottom 4 that I mentioned step up? Who knows? All I think is that at the end of the day, the Atlantic Division is still a pretty tough division. Not as deep as the Metro, but still, I mean, you have the 3-time defending Eastern Conference champions there, plus last year's best team in the regular season, points-wise. The Atlantic is still very deadly. I would not want to be a wild card team and be facing the potential top seed in the Atlantic. I'm just saying that right now. But yeah, that concludes this week's NHL division preview. That wraps up the Eastern Conference this week. Because I went over the Metro last week, we're going to go to the other 2 divisions over the next couple weeks and really wrap up everything as a whole as we go into the regular season. There was a contract extension that was given out this week in the NHL, but I'm actually going to wait until we go over the Central Division to talk about that contract extension because we're going a little bit long here. But I think it's going to be more apropos if I mention this player, if I just mention his team, who, let's just say they had a very good end last season. I'll give that as a teaser, aka everyone should know who I'm talking about, but still. But yeah, that wraps up this week's NHL Division preview, boys.
All right, beautiful as always, Jurg. All right, we move on over to the NBA world where a trade occurred very low key because I think it got overshadowed by other news in the basketball world that we're not going to talk about quite yet. But yeah, the Jazz have been on a fire sale this summer, obviously, because that's dominated most of our episodes. But yeah, it's Mike Conley, Bojan Bogdanović, Jordan Clarkson are like the lone wolves that were expected to be traded. So we expected a fire sale amongst them as well. It's just been taking a bit time. But yeah, the Jazz have traded Bojan Bogdanović to not the Lakers, the Detroit Pistons for Kelly Olynyk and Saban Lee, and that's it. That's the package. There's no draft picks, nothing. Obviously, no first rounders, no second rounders, no protected picks, nothing. So I'm very confused because I mean, all right, let's talk about it from the Pistons. No, actually, yeah, let's go Pistons first. So, dude, I think I talked to Jurg about this. I am buying stock on the Pistons this year. I am a fan of this team. I'm a fan of this roster. They clearly had an A1 draft. You have your franchise player in Cade Cunningham. You get Jaden Ivey in the draft, and they made some moves. Like they traded with the Knicks earlier this season, and I think they got Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks. Um, let me look at the roster real quick, but they have a decent amount of like a decent combination of young talent with complementary vets. So I'm looking at it now. Like this is their roster right now. You have Jaden Ivey, you have Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, Sadiq Bey, Marvin Bagley, who was killing it last year, Isaiah Stewart. Uh, they signed Knicks legend Kevin Knox, and then you have players like I said, Alec Burks, Nerlens Noel, and now Bojan Bogdanović. I think that's a really good get for them, man. It adds another shooter, of course. I don't necessarily know if that would have been the ideal destination for Bojan Bogdanović, but to be honest, I like this move for the Pistons. I like this move. I think they're going to be, with the addition of him, they're going to be a play-in team. I think they have the talent to do it, to at least compete for a play-in spot, not to be a solidified play-in team, but they're going to compete for a play-in spot. Again, it gives Cade Cunningham another shooter. I think it's going to elevate his playmaking skills, as well as Ivy. So yeah, for the Pistons, this is a plus. This is a plus, and especially what it took to get him. They kind of gave up nothing, which leads us to the Jazz, who got Kelly Olynyk and Saban Lee in exchange. So they didn't get any picks, but I think this is just another. I mean, the phrasing of the report was that, oh yeah, they wanted a center. They wanted a center to have for the season, and I think this in translation means that they just want to go all in on the tank for Victor. Like I don't think they care at this point. It's so obvious. I'm just surprised. I feel like they could have gotten like at least some type of second rounder for Bojan Bogdanović. He seemed like I feel like the Suns maybe. I mean the Lakers. Who knows? Well, there's 2 first-round picks that everyone's fiending for, but like I'm surprised that they didn't look for like a package that included a pick. And again, I'm just speculating. Maybe there wasn't a package that didn't include picks, but it seems like they're just cleaning house just to clean house. In terms of like the hierarchy of Clarkson, Bogdanović, and Mike Conley, in terms of what they could get for value, I think Clarkson would be first, Bogdanović second, Conley third. But yeah, they traded him for nothing technically. I guess just I don't know if he's a free agent next year or if he has a few years left on his contract. So maybe they would have cleared cap space. Jurg, if you could check that for me, I'm not sure what the salary cap looks like in terms of his contract. So maybe they cleared space, but just off rip, it just seems like they wanted to. The tank for Victor is just so obvious at this point. So who knows? Yeah, that's all I got to say about it. Win for the Pistons. Not really a win for the Jazz, but I don't think the Jazz are trying to win in like any type of scenario at this moment. So, Dame, let me start off with you. What'd you make of this trade?
Yeah, I definitely see it as a win for the Pistons as well. They really didn't give up much, so they got a guy who could spread the floor for their young guys and kind of be a veteran for them as well. He can help them on the court and off the court, and really getting it for nothing without giving up your future draft picks. Which this team is still young; they're still rebuilding. Like their draft picks are valuable, and they're still going to use them and draft guys that they think are going to fit their core. So without giving up any of those and just giving up honestly 2 bums for a guy who could give you an impact and really help your guys, I think that's really good for them because they are on the uprise. Like we talked about, they had a great offseason with the draft and free agency. They really have a nice core there. So now it's just about really doing everything you possibly can to help this young core grow, and that means adding guys like Bogdanović who can spread the floor for them and get them easier shots and stuff. So I really like what the Pistons are doing. As for the Jazz, though, it's kind of like what you said. Like, I don't know, they're just basically tanking. But I feel like there definitely had to be a team out there that was willing to give them some kind of pick. And I think at the end of the day, that would have been more valuable. Maybe the Lakers were offering them a second round pick or a couple second round picks, and they just didn't want to trade the Lakers. Like you mentioned in one of our group chats, like there's a Knicks tax and there's a Lakers tax. That's probably what it was in my opinion, because it wouldn't make sense to me why the Jazz wouldn't trade in for draft picks in which they can either trade up, use these draft picks that they got with Bogdanović to trade up in like the first round or something like that. Or they could use these draft picks to actually draft young guys that they can try to make their own core out of. So on the Jazz side of it, it doesn't make sense. They literally gave him up for free. Not they didn't even get like any kind of young like flyer kind of prospect that has any kind of potential. They got two kind of bums. I feel like they could have got more out of it, but at the end of the day, really like it for the Pistons. This is the kind of move that you make when you're doing it the right way. First you get your core young guys, and then you start adding the veterans around them. So yeah, really like it for the Pistons. Jazz again all off season. I just don't know what they're doing.
Man, that really sounds like it's the case for the Utah Jazz now, apparently. Okay. Well, I will say, just to clarify your point earlier for Bogdanović and his contract, Chris. This was the last year on his deal, and
Oh,
I think the key thing for it was the fact that they probably, with how the roster is now, I think they probably didn't expect him to stay. At least I don't think he would have stayed, to say the very least. Yeah, the trade as a whole was certainly interesting. I didn't expect to wake up to several pieces of NBA news, and this one actually was in the contender of being a more confusing one. Then again, I think it was beaten out. But like, yeah, it was weird. I'm not surprised to see Detroit want to make a move like this. Like you guys have already said, they have such a great young core there: Sadiq Bey, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duran, who they got in the draft from the Knicks. I still don't understand what that deal was with the Knicks. They got the couple veterans as well. This is just another one. I think Bogdanović as well. What he could be is a very good. Yes, he's very much a catch and shoot guy, but I think he can create for himself off the dribble for sure. I think he's had a couple like 30 and point games in his career. I don't think you could just do that being a straight up catch and shoot player for his role. So I think this is a guy who could maybe play a key role in, like, when you got to sit a couple guys, still be that steady veteran off the bench, or steady veteran in the lineup when the guys off the bench come in and help settle things in. This is a great piece there. I think Dwayne Casey's still the head coach in Detroit, if I'm not mistaken. And
yeah.
we know he's a guy that, like, you clearly tell he knows what he's doing with the young players, with how he's played guys like Sadiq Bey and Bagley and Cade. And now you give him a veteran, which is what he's mainly used to. He's used to going on deep playoff runs with veteran teams in the past. I think Bogdanović is a guy that Dwayne Casey would have loved on his team at any point throughout his coaching career. Good, great 3-point shooter. Fallen off a little bit in year 2 and 3 compared to what year 1 was in Utah, but still a very reliable 3-point shooter. This is great for Detroit overall. You guys said it best. This is the proper blueprint to follow. Build up the young core. It's kind of what I was just talking about with all these NHL teams. It's like, identify your young core and surround them after that. This is how it goes in sports. This is how it's done properly, and I think the Pistons are doing that properly. The Jazz, kind of like you guys said, I'm sure there were teams that offered picks, but it could be a case where it's like, the Jazz maybe tried to ask for a little more, and when they initially got that no, they didn't bother of going back down. They're like, okay, well, we're just not going to trade with you. It's like, it could be something that petty. It could either be that, or like we see and hear that there are rumors that, oh, the Lakers were involved, could have done this, or the Suns. I see a lot of people saying, oh, the Suns offered Crowder and 2 picks. But is that verified? You know, like that.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We hear these teams get involved. We hear, oh, they would have traded this, but they have no, like, who is saying that we can trust? So at the end of the day, I think you need to take it with a grain of salt, and also, like, a veteran who has had a little bit of injury issues in Utah. He mainly plays. Like, Bogdanović is consistent, but he's had some injury issues here and there. And he's also on an expiring deal. And guys on expiring deals are less valuable than guys with still 2-3 years left. Like, that's just how it works. And I don't think Bogdanović is going to commit readily to staying in Detroit right away either. So that probably was part of the reason why they didn't offer any picks. I still don't get why they couldn't have gotten something there. But hey, man, Utah's going to Utah. They got all those first round picks. to play with. Then again, does Utah really want first round picks with Danny Ainge there? He did nothing with the first round picks in Boston for so long in terms of a trade. Do you really want him to give more first? Do you really want to give him more picks to not use in a trade down the line to maybe make the franchise better? Maybe it was a good thing at the end of the day, you know. But in all actuality, W for the Pistons is great. I'm with you, Chris. We're buying high on Piston stock this year. That's going straight up to the moon on like Dogecoin, whereas.
Okay.
Whereas the Utah Jazz, yeah, like you said, they're in the tankathon, boys.
It's inconclusive. Like, we can't give them a rating on this.
I give them a V rating, as in going for Big Vic. That's what the rating is, Chris.
All right.
That's what it is.
That was a good one. That was a good one, Jurg. Yeah. All right, let's move on. NFL world, NFL talk. We jump in, fellas. An eventful week 2. I feel like I'm gonna say that for all the weeks, but week 2 has come and gone. We're recording Thursday, so week 3 starts tonight. Browns play the Steelers, of course. What a banger matchup! But let's not talk about this upcoming week. We talk about week 2. That's what we're gonna do. And it started off with a banger of a game. Chiefs versus Chargers. Chiefs beat the Chargers 27-24. Fellas, I actually have a couple things to say about this game. So I was not surprised. Like, I think this game could have gone either way. So Keenan Allen was out for the Chargers, and I do think it's notable. So I'm going to say this. So I think the Chiefs were down 10, I believe, in the first half. I think the first half, Chargers, I think, outplayed the Chiefs 100%. I think we could all say that. And credit to the Chiefs, because they could have gone down a lot more than 10 in the first half. The way the Chargers were playing and the way the defense of the Chiefs was going, yeah, I consider them fortunate not to go down more than 10 in the first half. But gotta give credit where it's due. In the second half, the Chiefs' defense, I think, stepped up. A few injuries to the O-line of the Chargers occurred, maybe in the first half. And I think that was a big reason why Justin Herbert almost died in like the last quarter, in the fourth quarter. I don't know if he's gonna be playing this week, but I know he got like a fractured rib, something like that. But so credit to the Chiefs' defense. They stepped up in the second half. Caused a pick. So Herbert had a pick that sealed the game for the Chargers. I think the Chiefs went up. They went up a touchdown. They went up 7 after that pick, and then after that, it was kind of theirs. But I gotta say, man, for this game, and Mahomes was great too. No picks for Mahomes. And by the way, I want to talk about this, but let me just get to this point first. I was a little uninspired by the Chiefs' performance this game. I think if and I'm not gonna say if they were healthy, because I think you could say that about every game. But the Chargers, I don't know, man. Like, they barely lose to a Chiefs team without Keenan Allen, and then like towards the end, Herbert gets a little hurt. Not inspired by the Chiefs' performance of the game. I still think they have a lot of holes, and obviously I think their defense obviously got better in the second half, and their defense got better this offseason. But like Jurg said, like, there is a lot of pressure because on the young guy on the defense, because a lot of the improvements on defense is kind of based on the young guys that they drafted. And we're all bullish on the Chiefs on the draft picks that they made, but I don't know, man. Like, this wasn't an inspiring Chiefs win to me. I think the second half was a lot more inspiring than the first half, obviously, but overall, I still have concerns about the Chiefs. And I want to say this. I think Mahomes played a great game. Why are we lowering the goalposts right now? Because I'm getting sick and tired of this shit where I saw after the game had happened, it's just like, well, Mahomes should have had picks. He gets so lucky. When did should have been picks become a thing? I don't understand. Why is this like? I didn't know the hatred for Mahomes has increased that much to a point where we're just been like, well, he got lucky. That should have been a pick. What? But they weren't picks though. I don't understand. Like, I cannot believe we're lowering the goalposts for this. Like, I didn't understand the want to see like Mahomes fail has increased this much. Like, wow. I don't know where it came from, but I feel like the zero picks / quote unquote should have been picks from Mahomes was more emphasized than Herbert's actual pick. And that's not a slight at Herbert, because we all love Herbert in this podcast, but damn, man.
Well, 2 out of 3 of us love him.
Who's the third one? Is it Dame? Oh, yeah. All right, well, yeah.
No, I don't hate him.
Okay. All right.
I'm messing with you.
All right. But it's so weird. Like, the dichotomy of this is it's just weird to me. It's very strange. But
well, it's not his fault. Let's be real here. When your younger brother is a
yeah. But
let's just say this.
Sure. But I don't know. I don't know. I just saw a lot on Twitter. There was a very controversial like dropped catch. I think it was who dropped the catch? Who dropped? That it was
Asante Samuel.
yeah, it was called a drop when it was about to be a
Yeah.
pick, but it was called a drop. There's back and forth with everyone saying that it hit the ground, but like he had possession, and then there's the other people that saying no, he had possession, and then he hit the ground, and then like it dropped after he had full possession, and there's people that just say no, it's a drop pass. So there was a lot of controversy around that because I think that was also a big deciding factor as to like the momentum of the game, how it shifted. But overall, Chiefs won. They're 2-0. We got to give credit to them as well. They came back like they always do, and I feel like the Chiefs operate better when they're down too. Jurg, let me talk to you first about this. What did you make of this game? What does it say about the Chiefs? What does it say about the Chargers? There was a lot of controversial shit in this game. Not crazy controversial, but like
Right.
a lot of deciding factors about how the game went, this and that. So yeah, what do you make of it?
Well, to all the people that say should have been, what if this, what if that, if it's and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all be a lot happier. But
Mm,
that's not how the world works, boys. Um, to the game itself, gutsy win by the Chiefs coming back. I think one thing it told me is that their defense can step up, and it has the
right.
ability to, even with the youth. The interception that was made, I forget if he was a late round pick or an undrafted pick, but like the kid himself was like working with his mom last year.
Wendy's, was it Wendy's?
Yeah, I think at a Wendy's or something.
Yeah.
And now to have that moment, like just props to him. I think Justin Watson is his name. All the
Yeah.
props in the world. He deserves it, like, for that moment. If there's one thing I saw is that the young Chiefs defense, and there are some youthful players on that team, like Watson himself. He recently came into the league. Trent McDuffie, who I think missed that game, and Karlaftis. Like those are three pieces to a team that is hoping to get back to the Super Bowl. Let's be real here. This team is going to have Super Bowl expectations as long as Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback. Similar thing in Green Bay when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. What that game told me is that they can step up, but how often is that going to happen is the question, because they are still so young. And even a couple of the other starters on the team, like Thornhill, the other safety that they have, even some of their corners, like this team is like at least half their starters, their experience in the NFL is like 3-4 years or below. So with not a lot of veterans in certain aspects of the team, you're going to see, like, in those moments, you took advantage and you were able to make that comeback. Like, props to the Kansas City Chiefs, of course. But at the same time, I think what that game showed me is that the Chargers, I think when these two teams meet up again in week 10, I think it's going to be a different story. I think the Chargers definitely have the weapons. They've almost always played the Chiefs so close. And I just think that this game is, yes, the Chiefs won, but like the Chargers are still coming. And even if you look at the interception, I actually went back to the interception that Herbert threw that ended up being a pick six. The tight end Parham, when they got to the goal line, or maybe the play before, he wanted to get off the field, because
Yeah, I don't
he
think
was
it was
secure.
as much Herbert's fault,
No,
actually.
it wasn't, because Parham completely did not try to make a play on the ball, did not move at it. That wasn't on Herbert. That
Gave
was
up.
a clear, yeah. Look, I don't want to say that because, like, I'm not going to disrespect NFL players, but on that one particular play, he didn't give in 100% effort, and that ended up being a pick six that decided the game. Like, that's just how it goes sometimes. I think there's a difference in what we were talking about between what ifs and what happened. You know, like, we don't need to sparse it. He didn't give 100% on that play, and that's what led to it. At the end of the day, the Chargers lost, and I think this is going to be a learning experience for this team as they go into the season. I'm more interested to see how the injury to Herbert is potentially going to affect him, because
Yeah.
any kind of rib injury
Twice,
sucks.
bro. Twice.
It sucks. So we'll see how that goes. I still have faith in the Chargers. I think they'll still be just fine. I think they
Yeah.
are. I mean, with how the other two schmucks in the AFC West have looked this season, I think the Chargers are the definitive contender or definitive challenger to the Chiefs as of now. They meet again, I think it's about week 10 or so. I think that's going to be a barn burner of a matchup, to say the least. I think that's going to be a game where, like, look out for the Chargers to want to get a little bit of revenge here. And even, I know he played well, but JC Jackson, like, he just came back off that surgery you told us about last week, right?
Yeah.
Like, that defense is, if all their pieces are there, and like they're going to play a lot better in week 10. Just saying that now. So, I mean, good win for the Chiefs, but that game still told me that the Chargers, they have a little bit of a ways to go, but the gap is still, like, it's not what it was in years past. This is the closest the gap has looked between the Chiefs and another team in the AFC West in a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for the Chiefs, I actually am not as concerned as you guys would be. I knew this game would be close. The Chargers always play the Chiefs well, but then when it comes down to the biggest moment, the Chiefs always, one way or another, come out with the victory. The only way they lose to Chargers if it's like a blowout from the get. This is my thing with Herbert. It's not that I hate him. It's just he hasn't proven anything to me to be named the top 5 quarterback. That's all it is. At the end of the day, it came down to him, and whether it was his fault or not, he threw a pick. He couldn't get his team down the field in other situations where they had to punt it away and stuff like that. And he obviously threw a pick. He saw that his tight end wasn't running that hard, and he still decided to throw that pick six. End of the day, biggest moments, I haven't seen Herbert shine. I can't name you one big moment where he's came up big.
Well,
But
I mean, towards the end, he did throw a dart at the end.
yeah, where the game was over. It was a 2-possession game. It was garbage time. The only thing that mattered, the only people that touchdown mattered to was fantasy owners or guys that had Palmer for any time touchdown. That's the only thing that mattered at the end. It was a 2-possession game. They had no chance of winning. Anyways, there you can't, like I said, you can't name me one time Justin Herbert has came up big in a big moment because at the end of the day, he hasn't been in any playoff games. That's his own fault too. But at the end of the day, King's the king. Patrick Mahomes got it done when he needed to get it done. And props to the Chiefs defense. It wasn't all Patrick Mahomes. He didn't have his A1 kind of game like he did against the Cardinals. But he did what he had to do to get the job done. A lot of credit goes to the Chiefs defense. Obviously, the pick six is the biggest one, but they had a lot of stops from stopping the run. They made a lot of big stops in the passing game as well towards the end of the game. The first half, they kind of got 8 up. Seemed like Mike Williams is catching 1 for 8 every other play. But in the second half, they came up a lot bigger. Like Jurg mentioned, it's a very young defense, so they're not going to be at its best to start the year. But I think over time, this defense is definitely far more improved than it was last year. But yeah, so I think the Chargers are coming, like you guys said, but I'm not too concerned about the Chiefs. I knew this game was going to be close, but at the end of the day, until the Chargers and Justin Herbert specifically show me that they can overcome the big moment, I'm still going to roll with the Chiefs any day.
And no Trent McDuffie, by the way, for the Chiefs.
Yeah,
and I know he's a rookie, but I mean,
yeah,
that's
he's the third best corner in the draft. It still counts for something.
True. Like, is he like CB1 for the Chiefs technically?
Yeah, because they lost their cornerback going to the 49ers this offseason.
All right.
He's taking a role early, and he's only played 1 game, so like he technically has played well, but it's also like you need him back on the field as quick.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Do we want to talk about the Giants?
I don't know.
Good for them.
Okay. Yeah. No. Well. Yeah. We'll keep it brief. Good for them. They're 2-0. They beat the Panthers. I think we'll talk about next week. I think we'll give Giants fans that. We'll talk about your game against the Cowboys next week. Because if you go 3-0, that's kind of impressive. But even though, yeah, no, that would be impressive. I think that would be impressive. I think the Giants have a chance to go 4-0 actually, because they play the Bears after the Cowboys. So. And I think Nick Wright said it best on First Things First. Like the Giants could go 4-0 but still miss the playoffs.
Oh yeah.
It's definitely true, but you got to give flowers when they're due, So shout out to the Giants. Like, I mean, look, they're fun. Like they're scrapping, and this is without Kayvon Thibodeau. Their defense looks a little decent at least. All right, well, all right. Okay, should we talk about the Jets Browns game actually?
I mean, you two are Jets fans, of course we're gonna speak about that game. Come on now.
Should Dame? Do you want to?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, let's go quick with this. So this game was kind of Jets weren't terrible in like the first 3 quarters, but like the Browns were winning. Like it was clear that the Browns were going to win this game. I can't believe the Jets won this game in the last 2 minutes. They were down 13. How much were they down by? 30. Yeah, they were down 13 with like 2 minutes left. I think Nick Chubb had a touchdown, and then I think it was a controversial touchdown. I didn't even notice this, but like because he scored the touchdown, it gave the Jets a little bit like a little life, like a modicum of life. Corey Davis, Damian's favorite player, catches a touchdown towards the end. They score. The onside kick, the Jets recover, which was absolutely absurd. And then Joe Flacco just turned back the clock. And, the Jets score a touchdown on the way back towards the end with 22 seconds left. A few things I want to talk about for the Jets. Gutsy comeback. You got to give them credit. Because it feels like the last play, when they were down a touchdown, they got the ball back. They recovered the onside kick. Everything was kind of going smooth because they were getting first downs, and it felt like I've never seen that from the Jets before. Never seen that. Where it just felt like a winning team in that moment, right? They kept getting first downs, good plays from Flacco. But Garrett Wilson, man, did he look like a stud. He looked like an absolute stud. And I think Joe Douglas, man, they nailed it with this pick, bro. 2 touchdowns, the game-winning one especially. Obviously, we want to see him with Zach Wilson, but I'll take this one because it's a confidence booster. Shout out to him, man. Shout out to Garrett Wilson. It seems like they got their guy. Like, he's primed to be their wide receiver 1 going down the line. But gutsy win. Browns, Man, is it worse to be a Browns fan or a Jets fan? Because I thought me and Dame had it bad as a Jets fan, but the Browns, like, wow. I cannot believe they lost this game. Like, it is absolutely absurd. Like, I need to look at the probability of, like the percentage of, like, the Jets winning the game in the last 2 minutes. I think it was, like, 1%, actually. I don't know. There's
It was less. There was like three. There are three games that happened on Sunday where the team had
yes.
at some point a 97% chance or more to win, and three of them blew it.
That's unreal. So, I mean, shout out to the Jets. This is a great win for us. I feel like this is a great win. I'm just so happy, especially after last week's disaster class. I'm more just it's just fun to have these type of moments as a Jets fan, right? And like to be honest, I think next week's a winnable game as well. But that's not a conversation for this week. But Jurg, what'd you make of this game? Obviously, I think this says more about the Browns than
Yeah.
it does the Jets, but go ahead.
Look, I'm gonna just say I just have one statement. Anyone that has criticized Nick Chubb for scoring that touchdown, please
Yeah,
shut.
that's come
Please shut
on.
up. Please shut up. Oh, Nick Chubb, how dare you not believe in your defense to, I don't know, make sure that a team that's quarterbacked by Joe Flacco in 2022. Let me restate that. Joe Flacco is a quarterback starting for a team in the year 2022, a decade after that Super Bowl run. And the defense let up 2 touchdowns in the final minute, whatever, to that. And it's somehow on Nick Chubb. Man, and everyone's like, bro, you don't know football. I play football. Shut the fuck up, bro. Honestly, like, it annoys me. I got on NBA fans before, and let me go to NFL fans now. I'm attacking every single fan base. It annoys me that you people really think this way on certain topics. Yes, Nick Chubb should have gone for the touchdown every single time. You want to know why? Because if I was an NFL player, if I was a coach in that situation, I would expect my defense to hold the fort for 2 minutes, even less than 2 minutes. Bro, I'm just sick of NFL fans for so much of it at this point. Like sports fans, the audacity that some people just gain to be just Twitter warriors is just it's unique to say the least. Very disappointing in Cade York as well, because I think he missed the point after that Nick Chubb touchdown, which kid, you got to hit it after that week 1 game winner. You got to hit an extra point. Come on now, but still, like, just the people saying Nick Chubb shouldn't have run it. Shut up. That's on the defense 100 times out of 100. I will say this. I mean, maybe I'll address it a little bit more later on in the show, but I don't feel bad for the Browns fans at all on that one, and I have reasons for it. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, kind of everything Chris mentioned. Like, it just feels good. It was just such a feel good kind of game. Like, I get it. Kind of the Browns choked it away, but like the Jets like went out and won that game. Like after they got the onside kick, of course, like Joe Flacco marched them down the field, pass after pass after pass, and they got it. It wasn't a blown coverage or anything like that. They didn't get any penalty help. Like they went down and marched down the field and got the job done. And although I think their defense gave up a lot of points, more than I would like, to a team that's led by Jacoby Brissett.
He's been solid for the most part.
That's such
Yeah,
a
I agree. I like how he played against the Ravens more than I did
Yeah,
against the Browns. The
I agree.
defense specifically, but I like how the offense played against the Browns compared to the Ravens. So it's here and there. Obviously, this is going to be an inconsistent team. Like
Yeah.
it just is what it is. They're young. They still don't have their actual starting quarterback back. Like you're gonna have your highs and lows, but this is definitely a high for the Jets organization. Is definitely a feel good win. Should give all these young guys a lot of confidence that they could really get it done, and they're really never out of the games. That's big as well.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of people say, dude, Zach Wilson should have to earn his job. Like, shut up.
No.
Zach Wilson's the starter starting week 4. Let's not get twisted. Big props to Garrett Wilson, man. That guy is a stud. I know Tyler Conklin mentioned he could be Justin Jefferson. I'm not going that far. But I think obviously this guy looks like a true number 1 receiver on a winning team. And I'm very excited to have him because we have him, Elijah Moore, Corey Davis. Like, that's a very solid group of wide receivers. And bringing a guy like Zach Wilson with those group of receivers, along with Michael Carter and Breece Hall, also look pretty good as well.
Yeah.
Tandem. Neither one of them have taken over the backfield by themselves, but them two together have been really good to kind of run it together and catching a lot of passes as well. So I'm really excited to see where the Jets team goes. Obviously, you can see our picks on the Instagram page. I do have the Jets winning this week as well. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, they bring it all together with that defense and offense and really have a nice, solid win from both aspects of the ball.
Yeah, I think the defense will have their hands full, though, with that Bengals offense, to be honest.
Of course.
Sauce is going to have to pull up, man. He's got Jamar Chase. But I don't want to put all the pressure on him. But, yeah, this is a feel-good moment. Okay. Guys, I'm concerned about the Colts. I am concerned about the Colts. They're now 0-1-1, but they got zipped by the Jaguars. I think this says more about the Colts, obviously. I think it would speak for all of us. Jaguars are first in their division, though. They're first in their division. Dame, talk to me, bro. What's going on with the Colts, man?
Man, it doesn't make sense, honestly. But the only thing that would make sense is that Matt Ryan just isn't better than Carson Wentz. Because you see how the Commanders look. Their offense looks pretty electric, to be honest. I'm not saying they're some crazy playoff contender or anything like that. But their offense looks a lot better than it did last year compared to the Colts, who everyone said that Matt Ryan's going to be such an upgrade, including myself. It's not. Jonathan Taylor doesn't look. You're not able to get Jonathan Taylor going because you can't get the pass game going. I get it. Michael Pittman was out week 2, but the offense didn't look good week 1 either. They had to come back against the Texans just to tie them. So it's very concerning for the Colts. Like, I think their defense will be fine. They have a couple injuries. Like, the second they get those guys back and they play a couple games, they'll be fine. That defense will definitely be the strength of this team. But if Matt Ryan and this passing offense doesn't get it going, the Colts are in for a long road. Like, this is going to be really bad. But for the Jags, I did say they're going to be pretty good this year. I'm not saying they're going to win the division like they are leading it right now. But actually, at the end of the day, you never know because the Titans freaking suck too. So this whole division kind of sucks. It's definitely the worst division in sport in football. But Trevor Lawrence looks like the guy that everyone's been praising him for coming out of high school. Him passing the ball. Christian Kirk, who everyone thought was overpaid, who he still is overpaid, but he's looked worth every dollar that they paid him.
Fantasy sleeper, bro.
Yeah, fantasy sleeper. They Travis Etienne and James Robinson, that duo, just the different things they can do really confuses defenses and keeps them on their toes. So I really like where the Jags team is going, but I think this definitely says more about the Colts because they came into the season with a lot more expectations than any other team in this division.
Yeah. Very disappointed. Matt Ryan has highly underperformed, to say the least.
Bro, we had the Colts as one of the teams that could threaten the Bills. We look so bad right now.
Yeah, it's not great. Freezing cold takes, to say the least here. We would actually get more traction though if we actually ever did get featured. So don't be afraid with the hot takes, boys. We gotta get that those numbers up. But yeah, no, it just looks bad. Like, who would have thought that you would have taken Carson Wentz over someone? Like, just let that sit. Let that thought marinate for a couple of seconds there. Yeah, no, it's just been a complete, like, and I just can't put it on the defense. Like, 24 points is not great, but when the offense isn't giving you anything, like, I don't think 24 points is bad. And even in that first game, they locked down the Texans for the most part in the second half, especially the fourth quarter and overtime. Like, it's not the defense, it's the offense. Frank Reich and Chris Ballard. I think the room temperature is increasing there a little bit, boys, because y'all gotta figure this out pretty soon, or else let's just say those name tags aren't going to be there for too long. Let's say those passes to enter the building, they're gonna stop working eventually. Like, I don't know what the fix needs to be because Michael Pittman did great in week 1, Jonathan Taylor did great in week 1, but everything got shut out in that second game. They got to get it together because, like Dame said, I don't know what divine intervention is happening. The Titans suck. The Texans are the Texans. The Colts are Colts are terrible right now. The Jaguars could be 7-9-1 and win this division, and I'm all here for it. I love it. As some people might be aware at this point, I love me a little bit of chaos when it comes to football.
Sounds like a plug. But oh my god, I just realized the Colts have the Chiefs in week 3, so this isn't looking any better for them.
And spoiler alert, all 3 of us picked the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Because if the Colts win this game, just what the
yeah, I mean they likely are. But who knows? I'm facing Jonathan Taylor this week in fantasy, so watch him just go off because that's how life is. All right, next notable game. Dolphins beat the Ravens. Guys, wow. One of the craziest games I think we've seen in a while. The Ravens were dominating this game. Dolphins came back. They were down how many? 21 points?
Yeah.
They were down 3 touchdowns. And then, look, we have to give credit where it's due because we've cut ass on Tua in this podcast a lot, and he had 6 touchdowns. And the true potential of this offense, I think, really peaked in this game. It really showed. Mike McDaniel, I think we all have high hopes for. I think he's one of the brilliant offensive minds in the NFL. Look, man, like Tua, the expectation is that he needs to show up now because he has a lot more weapons. And when you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle as your 2 wide receivers, this is what happens, right? And I think no lead is safe in the NFL, but in particular with the Dolphins. Because, again, we talked about this. Tua isn't the best quarterback, but when you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, the Yak Boys, the two elite members of the Yak Club, they can make a lot of things happen, man, and they're fast as fuck. So They're always dangerous, I feel like. But yeah, they came back, man, and I think the Ravens defense really collapsed here. Look, the true this is a good win. I don't want to take anything away from the Dolphins, but this is a very good win. They were down 3 touchdowns. You got to give them credit. They came back. Next week will be a truer test for them because they play the Bills. But I gotta say, man, I'm impressed by the Dolphins. I'm very impressed. This is a career worthy game for Tua. Got to give him credit. The 6 touchdowns, brilliant. Things are looking up for the Dolphins. Things are looking up for the Dolphins. Like even if they lose next week, I still think they're in a good position right now, right? They're definitely. I'm not gonna give them my prediction for like they're a true wild card solidified contender, but let's put that off for the side. But it's a good solid win for them. Definitely a confidence booster for Tua. For the Ravens though, Tua had 6 touchdowns. He still didn't look like the best quarterback in the field because Lamar Jackson went off, bro. Lamar Jackson looked like an MVP out there with this game. 318 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 21 for 29. He was fantastic. I feel so bad, but I think story here was the defense, right? Dame, let me start off with you. What'd you make of this game? I think you could kind of go either way with with which team this result says more about. But can I predict that it says more about the Ravens for you, or
No, I'd say it says more about the Dolphins.
okay? But it's still a bad loss for the Ravens.
No, yeah, it's definitely a bad loss, but the only reason I'd say it says more about the Dolphins is because they had this big question mark with Tua going into the season. Like quarterback's the most important position on the field, obviously, but the Ravens know what they got with Lamar Jackson. It's just about paying him. Lamar Jackson went out and had a game where he just shows you why he needs to get paid. Should have paid him right after the game. I don't know why they are waiting to pay him. It's not like you're gonna find a better quarterback on the free agent market, or as good as this team is, you're not gonna go out and draft a better quarterback than you have in Lamar Jackson, especially with the kind of scheme and running offense that they run. But I think for me, it says more about the Dolphins because you had this big question mark with Tua. You brought in all these guys just to see what you really have in Tua. Because although he showed flashes here and there, like he hasn't had that one statement game where it's like, yeah, that's the guy that's gonna lead this franchise into contention. And this is the game for Tua. He had 450 yards, 6 touchdowns. I know a lot of these plays, kind of broken plays. Maybe Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle got behind the cornerbacks and they lost coverage or stuff like that. But he got it done. He showed off his arm strength, which is amazing. I don't know if you guys seen that video where they reversed Tua throwing from lefty to righty.
Yeah.
It looks a lot better when he throws righty.
Yeah.
Like it really does. So I don't know what it is because obviously there's not any lefty quarterbacks in the NFL. You can't really compare it, but man, Tua went out and balled out. Like he made this is why you bring in guys around your quarterback to see what they really have, because now although it's one game and obviously like Chris mentioned, this week against the Bills is going to be a big test as well. I don't think he needs to go out and win it to really prove his doubters wrong.
Mm-hmm.
As long as he stays competitive, doesn't throw the game away, doesn't lose in the game, and really just gets beat by a better quarterback in Josh Allen and a better team in the Bills, I think it will be another step forward for him. But man, he got his playmakers the ball in the best ways possible. Tyreek Hill on deep routes, Jalen Waddle on the short game where he just got into space and made things happen. Tua did everything that the team asked him for and everything that they brought Tyreek Hill and all these kind of offensive playmakers in. For Tua to get them the ball and give it to their playmakers in best possible positions that they can. So that's why I think it means more for the Dolphins, because they had this big question mark at the most important position. And they basically made their whole offseason around how can we check if Tua is that guy and how do we put him in best position to succeed.
Yeah. Just real quick, because I was curious, because I feel like I had seen a story about it before. Tua is actually predominantly right-handed. The reason why he throws left is because his father trained him to throw the ball with his left hand as a child because he wanted a left-handed son.
What a stupid father.
I knew there was a story behind it, but I completely forgot it was that. That's wild. No, the game itself, like, you could say about the fact that the Ravens were dealing with injury issues because I think both Peters and Humphrey got hurt and they lost Fuller last week for the season. But at the end of the day, Tua slung that thing around. And I've been a little bit kinder to Tua than most on various podcasts I've been on, because going back to Alabama, like Tua to me is not individual season because Joe Burrow took that, but like for me, Tua is, in my very brief amount of college football I've watched, he's the best quarterback I've seen in college football. The year they made it and lost to the national champion to Clemson in the national championship game that birthed what is now Trevor Lawrence. he was supposed to win the Heisman that year to me. And I always think to myself that the end of the season, because he got benched, I think the SEC championship game, or he had to sit, whatever it was. I think that cost him the Heisman. And I still think, looking back, I think Tua should have gotten it over Kyler. And I've always seen it in Tua. He's always been extremely accurate, even though he's not really, even though he's throwing lefty. And that game proved it. Yes, like I'm not really one to hold it against a guy where it's like if you make plays on broken plays and the guy got open, because part of that is the offensive line or Tua himself makes more time in the pocket for the play to become broken and for his receivers to get the space they need now. I don't hold it against guys when they make plays happen on a quote unquote broken play, or if someone gets behind the secondary. I'm not going to hold that against the quarterback. I'm not going to hold that against the receiver. The defense just needs to be better. I think it was an amazing game. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle absolutely balled out. You said it best, Chris. Like this is obviously like the peak of it, but this is what the McDaniel offense should be in Tua getting the ball to his top two weapons, and they go from there. It's certainly been like my thing is that even if they lose this next game, to me it doesn't matter unless they lose like 63-0. Then that might be a difference, but even if they lose to the Bills, to me, the thing is that they just won a game that they shouldn't have won. Everyone had the Ravens going into it. Majority of people did. I'll give them a little bit of leeway. When you win a game that you shouldn't win, that to me, that buys you a little bit of time, especially because I know you don't want to go out on a limb, Chris, but because the Broncos and Raiders have both underperformed, and right now the AFC North, like everyone lost in that division this week, and the AFC South is just hot dog water when they're really only going to have one team. I think an avenue is slowly opening for the Dolphins to find a wild card spot, and that's very good for that team, especially Tua. Like if they make the playoffs, Tua's spot is secured, and I don't think it should have ever been in question. Again, I think he was screwed over his first 2 years with this coaching situation. While I think Brian Flores was wrongfully fired, you can say this: he didn't like Tua. I think you can definitively say that. Nothing ever clicked with him and Tua, and you're seeing now with a head coach that is fully bought into him, the offense, and making things run. That was an amazing game. Props to them. Ravens, rough game, bounce back. I think they have a relatively winnable game to be able to bounce back with, which is good for them. Lamar played great. Can't say anything about him. Just defense has to step up and play better. I said it about the Browns. I kind of mentioned it with, God, who else was it that I mentioned? But whoever it is, like, you can't let up that lead. Come on, bro. Come on. So defense has to play better. The Ravens will bounce back, but man, that's a rough one right there. That is one that if like later in the season, if you end up not winning the division by a game, this is the game they're going to look at, be like, we should have had it.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think the Dolphins do have a ceiling because like Tua's their quarterback, but man, that's a dangerous team if they make the playoffs, man. That is a dangerous team. That offense is nothing to scoff at. All right, let's see. Bucks beat Saints 20-10. I think the notable story out of this is that Mike Evans got suspended for a game for starting a fight with Lattimore. The Saints defense was really holding their own in the first half. I don't know. I think the Saints really do need a quarterback, bro. It's getting bad because I do think they have a decent team. But
the second the news broke that Jameis was playing with like the 3 vertebrae, herniated vertebrae, whatever. Like I literally texted in a different chat I'm in. It's like, oh, he's gonna throw at least 3 interceptions today. And
did he?
Yeah, he threw 3 interceptions.
Okay.
So it's like, dear Lord, my man. Like, look, props to him for trying to play through it, but just the Saints. They need a lot. They need a quarterback. They need a head coach.
Because the first half, like they were neck and neck. They really do show up against Brady. Like they dead ass hate Brady. And thank you, good for doing the Lord's work. But yeah, the Bucks defense, man, is looking primo. I think that's like been the main takeaway from the first 2 games.
I think that was Brady's first regular season win against the Saints since he joined Tampa.
Yeah.
That's wild.
That is wild. Who do the Bucks play next? The Packers. Never mind. LOL. All right, that's gonna be funny. Okay, let's move on. Lions beat the Commanders 36-27. Lions looking good. You know what? They lost to the Eagles in soldier-like fashion. They went to the end, and then they beat Commanders this week. Lions stock looking nice. Bro, they have like, I think, top 3 points scored in the NFL after 2 weeks. Good for the Lions, man. Good for Dan Campbell, man. I would run through a brick wall for you, bro. But they're looking decent. And Jurg, you're welcome for not switching that pick on the graphics thing. Granted, we still lost. Damian won week 2, but whatever.
GT has just Jets.
Yeah. 49ers beat the Seahawks 27-7. I think notable news out of this is Trey Lance is out for the season. I think it was a broken ankle. But Jimmy G now steps up and is the starting quarterback for the 49ers going forward. man. I mean, this is why you have like this is why when they brought him back as like a backup, I was like, okay, that fine. It makes sense. It makes sense just in case like Trey isn't ready. But for situations like this, I think the offense is familiar with him. I think again, you're supposed to beat the Seahawks if you're the 49ers, and it's a good bounce back win for them after losing in a bad loss to the Bears. They could be up 2-0, but they're not. They're 1-1, and they play. Who are the Niners playing next? Actually, I don't know. Someone check that for me.
The Broncos.
That's going to be a very interesting game. Okay, Rams beat the Falcons 31-27. Guys, a little concerned about the Rams. I still think they could make it out the NFC. They're one of the NFC contenders, no doubt about it. But I was a little concerned. Because they were blowing out the Falcons. Falcons came back, took their foot off the gas. Very concerned. Towards the end, I wouldn't say fully concerned because they dominated most of that game, but the worry meter is slowly trending up. I wouldn't say I'm fully there because they lost to the Bills last week, even though they got dominated. It was a Super Bowl contender that they lost to. This one, it was a little too close for my liking. All right, Broncos barely beat the Texans. Again, the worry meter for the Broncos has increased tenfold. Guys, it is, I don't know. I don't know. Russell Wilson's out here getting boos, much to the chagrin, much to the happiness of Jurg. And it's, you know what? I'm going to give a shout out to the Texans, man. They've looked competitive the first two games. But yeah, this is not looking good for the Broncos. I think we'll have a. You had what?
Can I get a hot take? My bad.
Sure.
If the Broncos finish below 500, I think Hackett's fired.
I mean, that's not a hot take at all, in my opinion.
I think, like, but in a first year, like, rare is it that the first year head coach gets fired? Like, I think it's not looking good.
It would be something that we could talk about, so I'm for it. They play the Niners next. I think we'll have a discussion about the Broncos next week. That'll be a much lengthier conversation. But right for now, they barely beat the Texans. Not looking good, but a win's a win. You need to get a win, especially after that Seahawks L. Bengals lose. Oh, no, wait. I actually want to talk about that game. Packers beat the Bears 27-10. Obviously, a good bounce back win for the Packers. Again, truer test next week when they play the Bucks without Mike Evans. We'll see. Bills just slaughter the Titans, and I think again, very good week for Jurg because all of his like teams that he hates have been taking massive L's. But again, Bills are the team to beat, man. This team looks insane. I don't see right now. I don't see a team stopping them right at the moment. Titans, I think they're done. I think their offense has been figured out. Not much to say about them. I think. Could someone tell me who the Titans play next week? They play the Raiders. That's going to be a very interesting game. That's going to be interesting because those are two teams that are 0 for 2 that are on the verge of just like both on the verge of possibly missing out already to start off the season.
Raiders, I'm hoping for you. Help me.
We'll talk about the Raiders. Okay, these three games I want to talk about, we'll kind of breeze by them. Not breeze by them, but we'll talk about more in depth. Eagles beat the Vikings 24-7. Kirk Cousins sucks, especially in prime time. I don't want to talk about too much about the Vikings because, I mean, they had a good first week win. Eagles, fellas, how impressed are you with the Eagles? We'll make this quick. Jerry, let me start off with you. How impressed are you with the Eagles? Because Jalen Hurts looks like a stud, and it looks like their offense is clicking because we expected the defense to be good, but the offense does seem lit. And I think, when you add that addition to A.J. Brown, obviously, it's going to look better. But I do think the main story here is Jalen Hurts, and you got to give props to him. But how impressed are you with the Eagles?
I mean, I'm more so happy that they were, like, the thing is, even though they scored a lot against the Lions, I don't think Hurts threw a passing touchdown in that game. I think there needed to be way more depth receiving in terms of guys actually stepping up, and we saw that more so this week. Because I think in week 1, the only other wide receiver, and I'm not including tight ends and running backs here, but the only other wide receiver, there was only one other wide receiver, from their week 1 game that had more than like 12 or 13 receiving yards. You can't win like that on a consistent basis. They were a lot better with getting it to weapons. Guys were getting more wide open. Devontae Smith, after getting blanked by the Detroit Lions, absolutely torched the Minnesota Vikings. Here's the thing with the Minnesota Vikings. Like, I gotta apologize to a lot of people. How dare I forget the fact that it's death taxes and Kirk Cousins doesn't do anything in primetime football. He's now like 2-10 on Monday Night Football alone.
Yes.
He sucks. It's not good. And I even said it before the season. Like, my thing with the Minnesota Vikings is that aside from like 3-4 players on the defense, the other 7 players, I'm like, okay, that's it. Like, I think their secondary is still young. Like, the Chiefs, I have that issue with them. I'm going to point it out with the Vikings too. The secondary, aside from Harrison Smith, is still relatively young, and they got torched. Like, props to Jalen Hurts. I still need to see a little bit more from him because I'm still not 100% sold. But like, that was I don't want to say bounce back because they obviously won in week 1, but that was a fix what you weren't good at
game.
And the Eagles did that. And to me, if they can do that, you're good in my books. They're nowhere near being the next Tennessee Titans or Steelers for me, or Russell Wilson. Like Jalen Hurts will never be that for me. But they're learning from their mistakes, and that's what good coaching, that's what good teams are able to do. So props to the Eagles for that one.
Yeah, it's definitely big props to the Eagles, especially Jalen Hurts. Like there was a lot of, it's kind of the same thing as Tua. Like they went to this offseason and try to put everything around Jalen Hurts to really see what they have. And Jalen Hurts had a monster game. He got the ball to A.J. Brown. He got the ball to Devontae Smith. Miles Sanders had a good game. He ran the ball. Jalen Hurts himself ran the ball really well. And he really showed out on primetime TV. So that was big as well, doing it on one of the biggest stages. Um, I really like this Eagles team, honestly, to win the division. The defense is good. Their offensive line is good. Passing game and running game, too. It's not just a one-dimensional kind of offense. And obviously having a dual-threat quarterback helps as well. The Vikings, like Jurg mentioned, like Kirk Cousins on prime time is arguably the worst quarterback in the league. He was throwing Darius Slay more than he was Justin Jefferson. So yeah, I don't have much to say about this game other than it just says more about the Eagles because the most important position, the guy who they invested so much in into this offseason, trying to put the best things around him, showed up.
For sure, for sure. All right, last two games I want to talk about before we give our Clowns and Crowns awards in Somewhat Sports. Bengals Cowboys. Cowboys win 20-17. Again, Dak Prescott is out for an undisclosed amount of time. Cooper Rush is their starting quarterback. The Cowboys seem to have this game on lock until the end where they choked it. Bengals came back, but the Cowboys win in the last second field. I think it was the last second field goal, right? Or a field goal towards the end, but they win 20-17. Look, if I'm the Cowboys, I'm taking any win I could get without Dak Prescott. Zeke is non-existent, and I say that as a fantasy owner. He is, my God, I don't know. Look, Cooper Rush is, wow. Cooper Rush. Cooper Kush. Cooper Kush. I got to put that in a teacher. Cooper Rush is 2-0 as a starter. Facts over narratives here. That's just facts. 2-0. Look, like I said, it's a solid win for the Cowboys. It's actually a very good win for the Cowboys because you beat the Bengals. But let's talk about the Bengals. Because I think this result says more about them than it does the Cowboys. Because they lost to a Cowboys team, again, without Dak Prescott. And this should have been a win for them. After an L to the Steelers last week, this is a bounce-back win. But now you lose, and you're 0-2. They are very fortunate that every other team in the AFC North lost this past week. The Browns lost, the Steelers lost, the Ravens lost. Bengals are very fortunate. They play the Jets next week. There's a high possibility that they could win that one. But I don't know, man. I'm not that sold because you lost to the Cowboys, and Jets are coming off a very inspiring win. If you go 0-3 and you lose to the Jets next week, I don't know, man. I think it's not a wrap, but it's kind of a wrap. And you know what? Me and Dame warned you guys about this. You know that it was Super Bowl fluke. I'm sorry. From what I've seen now, I'm not impressed. That O-line, like Joe Burrow, man, petition to just get this team to get more O-line help, bro. I am just concerned about Joe Burrow. Like, it's so bad. This O-line sucks so much ass, especially after, like, some key additions in the offseason. You'd think to be a little bit better, but I'm concerned. Their offense, I think, will be fine, but, like, again, it's their O-line, it's their defense. It was very meh. Very meh. I don't know. Concern level is rapidly increasing. Who did I end with? Dame, what'd you make of this game?
Yeah, I think it says more about the Bengals. Obviously, this is a team that went to the Super Bowl last year, and all me and you didn't have these expectations of them. A lot of people did. That man, Joe Burrow's so young. So Jamar Chase, that was just their first year together. They're gonna grow on in year two. T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, they invested so much into this offensive line. It's going to be so much improved. The team's going to be so much better. And here they are 0-2, and their two losses are to the Steelers and the Cowboys without Dak Prescott. So that's extremely concerning. And obviously going to this week against the Jets. They lost to the Jets last year. And the Jets, like Chris mentioned, are coming off a very motivational win that this team is going to be hype and going to try to build on it compared to the Bengals, who are coming off a pretty defeating loss against a team that had Cooper Rush as a starting quarterback. So we try to warn you that you better be careful with these Bengals and jumping on that bandwagon because last year was more of a fluke than anything. And so far, although it's only 2 games in, it definitely looks like it's true. But it's going to be a big game this week, I think, because if you lose to the Jets, then you lost to 3 pretty bad teams in a row to start the season after you just came back from the Super Bowl. I know Lionel Collins is most likely out too. They're starting right tackle, a guy who they also invested a lot in this offseason. So that's going to be tough because they just do have a pretty good pass rush with Carl Lawson and Jermaine Johnson and Quinn Williams. So
Mm-hmm.
not having your starting right tackle it's going to be worrisome for Joe Burrow when he keeps hitting the floor.
Is Jurg? I don't know if you know. Is Higgins playing? I know he was concussed. I don't know if is he cleared?
He was
Uh,
concussed week 1, so I
Oh,
think
okay.
he's
yeah, he
good.
didn't. He didn't play this week. I don't think he's gonna play that.
No, he did play. He played week 2. He did.
Oh wow. All right.
He did?
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
he
But
had
yeah,
a
go ahead,
touchdown.
Jurg.
No, I think honestly for me the biggest thing aside from the offense is the fact that the defense has only had 1 sack in each of these games, and I think the big thing, a part of their playoff run that they went on last year, was the fact that the pass rush for the Bengals actually stepped up in key moments, like against Patrick Mahomes
Yeah.
in that second half, and the Tennessee Titans, of course, that game they got 3 interceptions. I'm not going to call them a fluke because they did God's work for me against the Titans, so I'm not going to say that about a team that did me that favor. But yeah, it's very much concerning. You lose on a walk-off field goal 2 weeks in a row. that hurts. Um, they need to get it's very obvious they need to get the win next week. This is another coach that I don't care. This is my thing. This is why I've said in the past I don't care about the success in the past, because I think Zach Taylor, like if they underperform this season, I think Zach Taylor should get fired, because I think you see it, like he's one of those coaches to me that the quarterback helps him look a lot better, and the weapons help make him look a lot better. There were questions about him when he was first hired. Last year was a very nice year for him. You're not going to be safe from that in my book. I know they're probably going to keep him past the season because they kept Marvin Lewis probably like 5 years past when they should have, and this is just what the Bengals do. But I don't. I think Zach Taylor's job, like we're talking about AFC coaches whose jobs are like after just 2 weeks, it's not looking great. Hackett, Zach Taylor, and Frank Reich. Those are 3 guys that like they need better wins. They need kind of must win games in week 3. So that's a big thing there for the Bengals. I think the offense will right itself in terms of the skill. They have the skill. It's just goddamn that offensive line still just can't get it together, which I don't understand. They made all those changes to it, and still the Cowboys had 6 sacks. The Steelers had 7 sacks last week, I think. It's not good. It's just not good. But they also need to start causing some havoc on defense themselves. It's the trenches at the end of the day. There's a reason why sometimes the draft strategy is you build from the trenches and go out. There's a big reason for that because it's not looking good right now for the Bengals.
All right, this leads us to our last game, fellas. It was one of the craziest endings I think we've ever seen. Cardinals beat the Raiders 29-23. This is one of the games that we were talking about earlier. It was the Jets Browns, it was the Dolphins Ravens, and then it was Raiders Cardinals. Raiders were up, I believe, 20-3 or 20-7.
I thought it was 23-7.
Okay, whatever. They were up big. They were up big. They were up big, and the Cardinals came back. Kyler Murray, man, I think the ending of this game is the reason why Kyler Murray got paid the big bucks, and it's so weird because like when Kyler Murray is on one, he looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and he willingly himself won this game for them. I'm sorry, like it's just. I, Like, yeah, he doesn't watch film, but, like, when you watch this game, like, it's... what film is there to watch, bro? Like, there's so much just improvising, just, like, fuck it, I'm gonna, like, do this shit myself. I don't know, man. Overtime was just... I don't know what happened. It was all blur. Like, both teams were losing the ball, this and that. But I think Cardinals, this was... It's early, but this is a season-saving type of game. Because you lose this, you go 0-2 in a division where you have the Rams and the 49ers, right? I think the Rams are the clear-cut favorite. 49ers, little suspect in the first 2 weeks, but we expect them to kind of figure it out. Season-saving type of win. All you could do is kind of manage until DeAndre Hopkins comes back. But man, Kyler Murray looked insane, bro. Literally insane. You will them back. I think this is red alerts for the Raiders, though. They are now 0-2. You lose to the Chargers week 1. They're in your division, right? Bad L. You lose a lead now to the Cardinals. You're now 0-2. And then you play... Who the fuck's at my door? And now you play the Titans next, who are also 0-2. So, again, Jurg, we're hoping the Raiders win, but there is a chip on the shoulder for the Titans, right? So, I don't think it's going to be an easy walk in the park type of game for them. It's a must-win for both teams, but, like, just speaking from the Raiders, who are in the death division, wow. Like, this is the type of game you have to win. You had to win against the Cardinals, bro. You had to. Because the Chiefs are 2-0. Chargers are going to come back. And the Broncos, I mean, they won their second week matchup. So this is just a bad L in general for the Raiders. Yeah. Jerry, let me start with you. What'd you make of this game?
Yeah, though it was a terrible loss for the Raiders. They just completely fell apart, and the offense just couldn't do anything. Josh McDaniels, unlike Mike McDaniel, we've seen in the past, we've seen on a different AFC West team that sometimes his offense struggles. We're seeing that again here, despite the fact that this offense way more talented than his last head coaching stint. So, very very terrible loss here for the Raiders at the end of the day. I mean, you said it best, Chris. Like, you let Kyler Murray do what he wants. They already took out that clause in the contract for the study time for good reason. It doesn't matter. Like, Kyler Murray's trying to prove to us that when Call of Duty drops, he can actually ball out a little bit. So there it is. I definitely think Cliff Kingsbury would have been added to my list of coaches. I need to take a second look at it had they lost this game. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. Kyler Murray helps make his offense look a lot better than what it really is at this level because he is that supremely talented when it comes to it. And he just absolutely torched that Raiders defense and the Cardinals defense, able to make that big play. And sometimes your defense can struggle in the game, but it just needs to make that one play at the end of it to win the game. And that's exactly what happened in overtime. Must win game for the Raiders next week. Obviously, they're the only winless team in the division of death right now in the NFL. And you got to hurry up, because if you somehow fall 0-3, first off, you'll do me a disservice because you lost to the Titans and I'll be annoyed. And you give them the false hope. But then you fall down 0-3 to a division where the other three teams could end up, at worst case for you, they could be 3-0, 2-1, and 2-1 after this week. Just get the job done. Simple as that. And please beat the Titans. Just help bury their season even further, please. Vegas, please.
Yeah, obviously Kyle Murray got it done all by himself at the end of that game. Not too fond of what his first half looked like. The offense just didn't look good, especially with him. But at the end of the game, he showed why the Cardinals paid him, because of that potential where he could just make things happen on his own, even when things aren't going either his way or his offensive way at all. He just made it happen by himself. As for Raiders, though, like you guys mentioned, starting 0-2 in that division and possibly 0-3 if you lose to the Titans this week, who are desperate for a win as well, man, it's just not going to go well. I had this team as a third best team behind the Broncos, which obviously could still happen. It's week 2, but the both teams kind of look bad, but the Raiders just look awful, man. Like, you thought Devontae Adams was going to kind of unlock this offense. Well, he hasn't, and his defense has looked pretty awful as well. So it's definitely a very concerning loss, and this week is going to be huge for this team.
Week 3's games, there's going to be a lot of season definers. I know it's early, but like I love it. I love it. The pressure's on already. The pressure is on. All right, guys. Crowns and Clowns segment. Let me go first. You guys want to start with the Crowns or the Clowns?
Crowns first, I think.
Crowns first? Okay. I'm going to go. I'll go with Tua. I have 3 candidates here. I'm going to go with Tua. 36 for 50, 469 yards, 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. QB quarterback rating 90. So look, this was the game of his career so far, of his young career. And look, 6 touchdowns is nothing to scoff at. I know you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, but after all that criticism, he really showed up, man. And in a game against the Baltimore Ravens, no easy task. So you got to give him credit. 6 touchdowns is actually OD right now. Shout out to Tua. Like, he stepped up. Like, he actually stepped up. Tua, shout out to you. Your team's 2-0. You shut a lot of the haters up for now. You have immunity. You have the immunity blanket, but you get the crown. You get Chris's crown for the week. So shout out to you. Jurg, who's your crown of the week?
Yeah, I had a lot of candidates too. I gotta give my crown of the week. I know this is ironic because it seems like I'm really like burying them further. Stephon Diggs is absolutely phenomenal in the Monday night game. He is really proving that, like, maybe they don't need a real number 2 wide receiver there, because he apparently can do it all by himself. And
Davis was out.
And really, with the development of Josh Allen, yes, he has improved very much by himself. And this is why I speak up for receivers and running backs sometimes in certain instances. You can't tell me that Stephon Diggs hasn't played a role into why Josh Allen looks as good as he does now. You just can't. Like, he has been so instrumental to them the last couple seasons since he's gotten there. He's a big piece to that locker room as a whole. Minnesota, you got lucky that you got Justin Jefferson with that first round pick they gave you, because if the Vikings had whiffed and they had drafted Jalen Reagor instead of Justin Jefferson, oh my God, that trade looks really, really terrible right now. The only reason it's salvageable is because of Justin Jefferson. Yeah, Stephon Diggs, he gets my crown of the week. Just absolute, like, God mode against the Titans in Monday Night Football. Like, he was amazing.
Y'all literally both stole 2 of my picks. I was like, there's no way both of them are going to be taken. Whatever. So I'm gonna go with Ahmad St. Brown from the Lions. I think he
Ooh, good
just
pick.
broke a record for like 8 straight games or 8 straight catches or something like that. He truly looks like a true number one receiver. I think he was drafted in like the third round by the Lions. Um, he went for nine catches, 116 yards with 2 touchdowns, and he also had 68 rushing yards as well. So that's nearly 200 total yards for him. And on a team that's desperate for offensive weapons until they kind of find their franchise QB, they already have their running back in Swift. They just drafted Jameson Williams, and just be able to, until Jameson Williams comes back, being able to know that you have a guy like Ahmad St. Brown who can make things happen, um, is really good for them. So I think him breaking that kind of record and being so consistent from the second half of last year to now, I think it's incredible for not only him but for the team as well. And that's why he gets my crown of the week.
Yeah. My other candidates included Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray, to be honest. But I figured I might as well just go with Tua because I don't know how likely it is that Tua is going to get a crown on Somewhat Sports. But yeah. All right. Clowns of the week, guys. I'm going to go with the first year. I'm going to go with the team. A team gets the Clowns award this week. There's no rules for this, actually. I'm going to go with the Browns. I think the Browns are the Clowns of the week. See what I did there? Yeah. They lose to the Jets in just Browns fashion. It's an embarrassing loss, right? It's just you're up 13 with literally 2 minutes left, and you lose to the Jets. Just questionable decisions all around from that team. And again, this is a season defining loss. Could be. So I'm gonna go with the Browns. It's a cop out answer, but you know.
That's fair.
Dame, who do you got for your Clowns?
I got the Titans as a team. Same thing as you. As I'm going with a team. I think the Titans are just an absolute embarrassment to the game of football. If you watch that game, their offense is awful. Derrick Henry rushed for like 16 yards or something like that. Yeah, like a really short touchdown. So it was what it was. But man, they cannot throw the ball at all. AJ, you see how important AJ Brown was to that offense. That they can really move off that play action, and the defenses can't have 8 guys in the box. But now they traded AJ Brown away because I don't know what they trusted in that offense because AJ Brown was that offense clearly. Derrick Henry can't carry himself, and they thought Robert Woods and Treylon Burks were going to make up for AJ Brown. Well, not even close. So Clowns of the Week goes to the Titans because they thought this offense was going to be anywhere near what their offense was the past couple years. AJ Brown.
So happy that it's not just me this week. My clowns of the week go to two specific groups of fans: Raiders fans and Browns fans. Needless to say, the Browns fans like have been they've been way too much in terms of wanting Deshaun Watson back. You guys have seen the pictures. I'm not really going to describe them, but like this, I said this word last week. I think it more applies here. The sycophants of Browns fans that are not only wanting, like I understand wanting a top tier player back on your team, but the way that they've shown it has just been absolutely pathetic to me. They had the mannequin out there in that second game, I forget if it was preseason or the first game where like a dad and his son both had some signs that were like very explicit in terms of the Watson situation. Like you guys are just scumbags when it comes to the Browns fans. So that's why I don't feel bad that they lost that game, and I hope they continue to lose more games like that because like they just don't deserve it if that's how pockets of that fan base are going to act. And my other one is Raiders fans because there was a Raiders fan on social like after they got up 23-7, just the dude started popping champagne.
Oh yeah.
And they lost. Like, God, that's the best thing in the world is just French kiss. So fans are my clowns of the week. Very close to being clown of the week, also from the Raiders Cardinals game. Byron Murphy, who ended up getting the fumble recovery for the touchdown.
Oh my God.
He barely. Actually, also the Raiders fan that slapped Kyler Murray, by the way,
Yeah.
also clown of the week. Byron Murphy barely crossed the end zone when he flicked the ball away. If he had done it a second sooner, they would have it would have been reviewed because they would have been a big stink of it, or it would have at least been controversy. Bro, I said it earlier for a reason. Defensive players, get your shit together. Cross the end zone first. Stop it. Stop. Secure the touchdown. Stop
That would have been catastrophic. Oh my God. Yeah. Wait, Jurg, did you finish? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I'm good. Those are my clowns of the week.
All right, solid choices, my brothers. Solid choices. All right, pretty eventful episode. That'll do it for this week. Yeah, just a lot of storylines, and I'm pretty sure with NBA coming back, the news is gonna ramp up. So, yeah, NFL week 3 next week. More hockey division previews and NBA news likely to increase. Somewhat sports with the start of fall. It's looking good. It's looking nice. Jurg, where can they find us on the socials?
Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, as the fall season arrives, the Somewhat Sports Podcast will rise as well. Please follow us at somewhat.sports on Instagram in order to make sure you keep up with us on a weekly basis. We post in the story when the episodes are out, and we also post the weekly basis of our weekly predictions. Very fun so far. I have a week. Dame has a week. Will Chris join the fray? Will one of us get our second week? Who knows? I mean, similar thing happened last year. I think one of us won week 1, Dame. The other one won week 2, and I think Chris won week 3. So it tends to be close for the most part, so you guys will see that. And we also post updates on other big things that happen as well. With the start of the season coming back, I'm sure we're going to do standing predictions for the NBA here coming up. It's going to be exciting times.
Right.
And and somewhat space and sports on both YouTube and Spotify to get the podcast. You guys already know. Look at the beautiful red logo that you'll see there, made by our graphics connoisseur himself. And just follow the pod, guys. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Give us 5 stars. Leave a review on Spotify. I've said this so many times. I'm going to say it again. Best sports podcast out there. Join the wave. Join us on a weekly basis here, ladies and gentlemen. Somewhat Sports Fandom. Let's ride.
Well, beautifully said as always, Jurg. Coming from Jurg, who's part of 80 sports podcasts, so we must be doing something right. All right, fellas, beautiful job as always. To all listeners listening, you've made it this far. We appreciate you. And until next time, peace.
Peace.